Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym Patreon Classic Weekly Q&A. So I am going to be looking away a little bit from the camera because I'm having to read my script. This is the first week, this first one for Patreon. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. And you'll have to forgive me to work out all the kinks. So before we get into this week's questions, I do want to say that if you like the Patreon service, make sure you share it. My goal is to allow Patreon to be a way in which people can get help, but at a lower cost option than our one-on-one service, and then also maybe help in a way that better matches what they need compared to the one-on-one service. So if you do like this, make sure you share about it so that way we can reach more people, hopefully help more people. And then as part of the support and followership of Brutal Iron Gym, I do want to always remind people that we have a 10% discount for supplements at Nutricost.com. That's where I buy mine. That's actually why I decided to ask if they would do an affiliate link with me. So I actually asked them. And it's a great company. Everything is very clear cut on what it is. And you can go to Nutricost.com, use the code BrutalIron10 for a 10% discount. And then 10% of what you spend does get kicked back to us as a commission. It doesn't increase what you pay, but it is a good way to help provide, financial help to cover podcasts and the Patreon and different odds and ends. So you get really good supplements, same type of supplement quality that I would use and I use with Meredith and my family. But you get it at a 10% discount if you want to use that. So Nutricost.com, BrutalIron10. And then last is if you have any questions, if you need anything, reach out. Emails brutalirongym@gmail.com. And then you can always reach out on our website, www.brutalirongym.com. Okay, so all that stuff out of the way. I just laugh because I put it at the end of the podcast, but I doubt anybody ever listens to it. So I decided here in the weekly Q&A to shift some of that to the front end. What I want to do today is go through some questions. I asked a few of my clients who are personal trainers and they're my one-on-one clients for some question ideas because I wanted to be able to showcase what the Q&A could be. I want to answer like real questions. So I thought it would be fun to ask them. And then all one-on-one clients are going to be included in the Patreon services for free. So this is going to be something they can get access to and use anytime they'd like. Now, this is the classic membership. We do have a trainer membership as well. The trainer membership covers more trainer specific information. So I'm going to talk about business. I'm going to talk about how you manage and adjust nutrition and training around clients. So that's going to be more business focused. And since over half of my clients are personal trainers, I thought that would be a great option to provide. So if you're interested in that, check out the trainer membership. The classic membership, which you have signed up for, is meant to give you access to a lot of training programs and give you access to me. You can ask any questions you want. I can adjust anything. We'll give you suggestions on how to adjust stuff and answer any nutrition questions and whatnot. It's basically, you get a free nutrition, well not free, I guess $20 a month. For $20 a month, you get to ask a nutritionist and trainer any question you want and get it answered. That is the goal. As of now, I don't have any parameters set for how long these Q&As are going to be. I just wanted to make sure I'm available to answer everybody's questions. So for now, I'm just going to answer every question I get, and then if it's under an hour, I'll probably fluff it up and answer some extra things that clients are asking. But I'll aim for around an hour, and then I'll also ask you for feedback on what you think is a good time frame. If this is too long, let me know. If it's too short, let me know. I want to make sure that you're getting exactly what you want from the service. Okay, enough of me BS and installing. Let's get into it. Nutrition questions. Should I cut carbohydrates to lose weight? No. And this is also, it's always good when you get like weight loss versus fat loss questions. There's a huge difference. So you can lose weight, but it doesn't mean you lose fat. A lot of the athletes I work with, we do weight classes for, powerlifting, wrestling, other sports. So sometimes when we're manipulating weight, we're actually just manipulating water weight, like stored water. So they might lose, 5 pounds in 24 hours, but it isn't fat. Like there's a big difference between losing weight versus losing body fat. Fat is going to, when you lose fat, you're going to lose some associated water, but fat loss is something that happens very slowly. It's frustratingly slow, but you might work really hard to lose 1 or 2 pounds of fat in a full week. Whereas when you talk about just water manipulation, you can lose 1 or 2 pounds in a day. You can lose that in an hour if you have exercise, intense exercise. So when we're looking at carbohydrates to lose weight, if you're asking for fat loss, should you cut carbohydrates to promote fat loss? You don't need to. Essentially, when you're looking to burn off body fat, you're wanting to be in a caloric deficit. Now, the calories of like what composes our calories, there's 4 macronutrients. Water is one of them. Nobody usually names that because it doesn't have any calories. But the other 3 are protein, carbs, and fats. Protein does a lot of repairing in our body. It builds structures, repairs structures. We don't convert protein to body fat unless it's very extreme cases. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're very unlikely to experience that extreme case because it has more so to do with poverty and food restrictions. But protein isn't something we have to worry about. So when we think about what contributes to body fat, it would be excessive carbohydrates and fats, meaning carbohydrates and fats that exceed what we need. You can think of it as filling the gas in a gas tank in a car. If the car's gas tank holds 5 gallon, I can put 5 gallon of fuel in. If I try to put 10 in, it's going to spill over. It's going to, spill outside of the car, run down the car. It's just not going to fit, right? Well, our body does let things fit. It will expand and basically fill up fat cells to allow excess to fit. The reason why is because our carbohydrate and fat energy contributes to running our body, especially our organs. Our body is, however long we've been around on the planet, you can debate that however you want for religious purposes. I don't want to get into trouble there. But however long human beings have been on the planet, we haven't always had food available to us. So our body had to figure out, okay, when I have, feast or famine, when I have a feast, this is a moment where I can protect myself against the famine. When I don't have enough energy coming in, my organs would shut down and my body would die. So then when I do have excessive available energy, I want to be able to store that. So the body created the ability to store body fat. So that way, whenever we're in moments of famine, we have that stored body fat to cover our energy needs. With that in mind, the body then is designed to store some excess as body fat. It doesn't store 100% excess of what you eat. You do some of it, you just go to the bathroom. Some of it might allocate to extra repairs and extra needs around the body if it's been kind of under allocating those components. But when you're in an excess, there is a larger percentage that's going to go to body fat than if you're at maintenance. It's definitely hopefully minimal percentage, if any, when you're at a deficit. That can still happen sometimes if you eat really large meals. You're in a moment of surplus, even though you're in a deficit outside of those meal times. But when we look at carbohydrates, the reason why people typically think that they need to cut carbohydrates is carbohydrates contribute towards something called glycogen, which is when our body stores the carbs that we eat plus sodium and water. So carbs, sodium, and water. It'll store that in our muscle cells for energy. When you ingest more carbohydrates, if the amount of glycogen you can form isn't full, the body will take some of those carbohydrates, the sodium and water, like sodium that's in your food, and then water that you drink throughout the day, or also in your food, and it'll fill up the glycogen stores. Then when you cut carbohydrates, it can't form the glycogen. So it can't put together carbohydrates, sodium, and water because there's no carbohydrates, so it can't create that glycogen, so you have a lot less glycogen in the body. Well, glycogen has weight. since we store glycogen, which is carbs, water, and sodium in the body, water is one of the elements there, and it has weight to it. So the more glycogen I have, the more I will weigh. The less glycogen I have, the less I will weigh. Glycogen is a good thing. It's very helpful for performance, very good for energy throughout the day, and it also does like fill up our muscles. Think of like blowing up a water balloon, is it fills your muscles up and you can like look good and feel full, But when glycogen is emptied, we tend to feel like crap, or we're going to look flat. We're not going to have really good muscle detail and muscle fullness, but you would weigh less. So essentially what people have seen is when their carbohydrate intake fluctuates, when it goes up, their weight goes up. When it goes down, their weight goes down. That is related to the water that's being stored in glycogen in your muscles. So when people see, okay, if I eat less carbs, I weigh less, they then think, oh, that helps me lose fat. That means I'm losing fat. No, you're losing water. So when you manipulate carbohydrate intake, you're actually manipulating water retention. And that same reaction doesn't happen with dietary fats. Dietary fats don't form glycogen. They don't have any component that causes us to weigh more or weigh less related to water retention. So when you manipulate dietary fats, you don't get this immediate response of body weight change. But when you manipulate carbohydrates, you do. That immediate response, any response that's within like a day or two or even 3, is related to water changes, not fat loss. Fat loss, again, takes, like a week to even see just a pound difference. And that's related to how much of a deficit we have to be in order to create that process. Now, I think I've already said probably way too much, but I'll have to get better at these Q&As and making my answers more succinct. So do you need to manipulate carbohydrate for weight loss? If it's literally you just want to weigh less, you can reduce carbohydrates and that'll reduce how much water you store in your body. But is that fat loss? No. When we think about fat loss, you just want to be in a energy deficit, which would be in a carb and fat deficit. How much? Well, we know that about a pound of fat is about 3,500 calories. So if I create a deficit across a week of 3,500 calories, so if I'm in a 500 calorie a day energy deficit, I'm eating carbs and fats 500 calories less than what my body probably needs, then I'm going to burn a pound of fat by the end of the week, 3,500 calories. You can create that deficit by manipulating the intake of carbs or fats. So if you eat 3,500 calories less of fats, you'll lose a pound of fat. If you eat 3,500 calories less of carbs, you'll lose a pound of fat. If you do any percentage of fats and carbs, you'll lose a pound of fat. So you don't have to manipulate carbs specifically if you're looking at fat loss. You can eat whatever amounts of carbs versus fats in regard to percentage of intake that you prefer. So if you really like carbohydrate foods, eat more carbohydrate foods. If you like fats, eat more fats. But at the end of the week, if you want to create, a pound of fat loss, you have to be in a 3,500 calorie energy deficit, not protein deficit, but carb and fat deficit. Okay, that was really long-winded, but hopefully that was helpful. Question 2, how much sugar is too much sugar? For what? Like, too much for what? So there's not really any context with that question. So what I would assume is they're going to mean for like health reasons. It depends on what you want. If you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, you probably want as little as possible sugar intake. You can also get away with that by pairing sugar with slower digesting nutrients like fats and proteins. So that way you can still have some sugars like fruits, for example. You can have fruit with a protein or fruit with a slow digesting fat. Think of like apples and peanut butter. And the slow digesting element, the fat or the protein, will blunt some of that sugar spike response. But typically less sugar is better if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic. If you're not either of those cases, sugar outside of immediate energy needs, which would be around like workout times, probably should be minimized just for like managing hunger, managing body fat, managing caloric deficit, surplus, because sugars are easy to eat and they taste good. So it's very easy to overeat when you consume sugar. But is sugar the enemy? Is it the devil? No, not really. I mean, it's just, If you're having sugar problems, like you, oh, I just crave sugar all the time, I would more so look at the total number of calories you're consuming. You might just be under eating. And if you were to eat more slower digesting carbohydrates, eat more fats, eat more protein, you probably wouldn't have the cravings for the sugar. Typically, when I think of sugar, when I'm thinking of somebody without any medical conditions, I usually ask them to be around 60 grams of sugar a day. But that's considered, like, I mean, you could consider that arbitrary, because if you're looking at somebody who, like myself, I'm 255 pounds right now, I can have 100 grams of sugar, and if I'm having that like pre-workout and intra-workout, it'll have no negative real impact on me whatsoever, assuming I'm still controlling my total calories throughout the day. So it can be contributive towards the carb and fat intake that we have during the day. If I consume too much sugar, contributing to the fat and carb calorie allotment that I have for the day, I'll notice I'm super hungry between meals, and by the end of the day, I'm probably like, ravenous and cravings and overeating. Whereas if you reduce sugar percentage within the carb and fat allotment that you have throughout the day, you'll probably have better sustained energy. You won't have such like highs and lows in energy. You'll have less cravings by the end of the day, because the food is going to digest a lot slower, and that allows you to feel more sustained and full throughout the day. So too much sugar, it depends. I don't like it's all individual preference. If you don't have fasted glucose issues, if you're not pre-diabetic or diabetic, I would say that there isn't really a too much. If you consume quote unquote too much, you'll just notice you're super hungry throughout the day and you tend to overeat, and maybe you don't have your body fat as low as you would like. So reducing sugar can help calm hungerness throughout the day, and it can eventually help you probably better control your calorie intake, which will allow you to be leaner. So there you go. Okay, next question. What is the ketogenic / keto diet? It would be extremely, extremely low carbohydrates. So you're relying mostly on fats and protein. Ketones is the broken down form of energy when we consume dietary fats. So dietary fats get broken down into ketones, whereas carbohydrates gets broken down into glucose. Protein gets broken down to amino acids. So keto diet or ketogenic diet is more so referring to that your body is favoring using ketones for energy rather than glucose. And it's not that it actually favors that, it's just you're putting it in that situation. By severely under consuming carbohydrates, your body is forced to burn ketones. And you can actually use there are little sticks you can pee on to test and see the ketones in your urine. And that can actually let you know if you're fully into the ketogenic diet. Sometimes people think they're just doing I'm doing a keto, and you ask and they're actually just doing low carb. The difference is that you can actually test and see the ketosis state, like the ketones that is in your urine, and that'll actually let you know if you're fully actually in a ketogenic diet. But essentially, ketogenic diet is you're just using predominantly fats and protein and really trying to minimize carbs. So in a keto diet, for example, you can actually overconsume simply just vegetables that can keep you out of ketosis. So it's that sensitive that if you are not even controlling the normal things that people think are healthy carbs, it can actually still be too much. Okay, fourth question, how much water should I drink a day? 0.5 to 1 ounce per pound of body weight. There you go. It's a good range. If you're under that range, try to get up to at least half your body weight in ounces of water a day, or fluid. Let's go with fluid. I don't care, and research backs this up. It doesn't matter if it's coffee, if it doesn't matter if it's like a non-carbohydrate, non-calorie drink. It wouldn't even matter if it was calories. It's just that's going to contribute to your calories. But how much fluid you need a day would be 0.5 to 1 ounce per pound of body weight. If you're an athlete, you're probably going to need more than that. If you work outside the heat, probably going to need more than that. But that's a good kind of general range to be aiming for. Okay, next, how much fruit and vegetables should I eat a day? I believe the recommendation is 3 to 5 servings of each to cover your micronutrient needs for the day. Typically, on average, a serving of fruit and or vegetables is around 100 grams in weight, depending on what fruit or vegetable. So it's a ballpark figure. But if you think about, okay, I'm supposed to have 3 to 5 servings, that's 300 to 500 grams in weight. So if you weigh your foods, 300 to 500 grams of weight in vegetables, 3 to 500 grams of weight in fruit, and that would then cover your micronutrient needs. It's very uncommon that people get both of those. Pretty much everybody falls short on one side or the other. And then also that has to factor into your carbohydrate intake. You have to factor that into grocery bills. You have to factor that into how frequently you shop, because a lot of fruit and or some vegetables can go bad pretty quickly. So there's a lot of economic reasons plus like food preference reasons why people might not get that in. I recommend people take a daily multivitamin, there we go, to cover their micronutrients. And then with typical food, when somebody's trying to eat quote unquote healthy, along with a daily multivitamin, you'll probably be fine for your micronutrient needs. So you don't have to have fruits and vegetables if you don't want to, but that would be the recommendation, is 3 to 5 servings of each. How much is a serving? About 100 grams in weight. What are healthy fats? Healthy fats are typically referred to as unsaturated fats. However, saturated fats are really good for you too. They contribute towards hormone health. The problem is people usually have them out of balance. In our total fat intake, usually it's recommended that 1/3 of your fats come from saturated fats, which are animal fats, and 2/3 of your fats come from unsaturated fats, which are plant-based fats. Think of like oils and nuts and things like that. So the reason why saturated is referred to as like unhealthy and unsaturated is healthy is due to the heart effects. If you overconsume saturated fats, it can lead to, it's been like connected with heart issues. But again, that's mostly whenever you're not regulating for excess versus surplus. There are people who do a carnivore diet, which is really freaking high in saturated fats, but they can have really good blood health, assuming that their total intake is still controlled and the fats they're giving their body is able to burn up and use and put to work. So healthy and unhealthy are kind of cruddy terms for fats. It's just they both have benefits, like saturated and unsaturated. They both have benefits. You just want to not have them equally. So saturated, you want a little bit less than how much unsaturated you get. Okay. Do I need to take vitamin supplements? Need, no. Is it helpful? Yes. So I do recommend that people take a multivitamin, just because we tend not to have as much variety in our food intake than we think we have. People are much more selective than what they think. They usually stay with, and it can range quite a bit between like say 8 to 12, and there's plus or minuses there of different foods on a regular basis. So you think about like the couple foods you have for breakfast, couple foods for lunch, couple foods for dinner. People tend not to actually stray as much as they think they do. So we tend not to cover all the varieties of foods that are available. So we do often fall short in certain categories of foods, which might be high or low in certain micronutrients. So therefore, we might be high or low in certain micronutrients. So I do think taking vitamins can be helpful to cover what gaps we might have in our food. It's much easier just to take a vitamin than it is to try to freaking cover all those gaps in food selection and purchases and costs and all that. So do you have to take a vitamin? No. Is it a good idea? Probably. Just makes things a lot easier. Cool. Those were the nutrition questions. Next, we'll get into the training questions. Let's see how I'm doing on time. Okay, about 24 minutes in, so I'm going actually pretty good pace here. Training. How many days a week should I work out? How many can you? I usually recommend people to work out, like, is once a week productive? If compared to 0, yes. If you can do more than once a week, would it be productive to do more than once a week? Absolutely. Twice a week, same thing. Is it better than 0 or 1? Yes. Is it optimal? Probably not. 3 times a week, if you do full body workouts, that can be optimal. If you do have kind of scheduling conflicts or you're not certain if you can get in more workouts than that. So 3 times a week is what I would consider to be the bottom of like what is best range. And you would want to do full body workouts. Now, I know there's old school like bro splits where somebody might do legs one day, chest. Think of push pull legs. So push is chest, shoulders, triceps. Pull is back, rear delts. Delts is short for deltoids, which is your shoulder muscles, so the backside of your shoulders. So you have backside of the shoulders, and then biceps for pull day, and then legs is legs. Sometimes people will set it up where they'll do, legs once a week, pull once a week, push once a week, and then that's as frequently as they do it. I'm not in favor of that because the amount of effort and the time it takes to get all the legs completed in one day and miserable enough volume that it lasts an entire week in recovery, it's really hard. I mean, you're putting in like 90-minute to almost 2-hour workouts probably to get all that in. And typically, if somebody has like tight time frame and they're like, I can only really train 3 days a week, they're unlikely to say I can only train 3 days a week, but on those 3 days I can train however long I need. So it's usually don't have that dichotomy. So typically, training the whole body is nice because I only need to get in a little bit in workout 1, a little bit in workout 2, a little bit in workout 3 for all my muscles, and then collectively for the week, it adds up to the volume and the amount that you would have needed. But you can do that in like hour-long workouts rather than taking 2 hours to try to do all your legs in one day, 2 hours to do all your push in one day, 2 hours to do all your pull in one day. So 3 is the bottom of what I would typically recommend. And if you do it, like I said, full body. 4, very common, probably the most common. Whether you're a bodybuilder, you're going to split it up a little bit different. Powerlifter did it a little bit different. Fitness a little bit different. You can do full body. You can do upper body, lower body. And for powerlifting, for example, upper body, lower body just looks like squat day, bench day, deadlift day, bench day, or overhead press day. If you're a strong man, you just flip the bench and the overhead. But 4 is typically like what's common, especially in strength sports and general fitness and blah, blah, blah. When you get into aesthetic training like bodybuilding, classic physique, figure, wellness, bikini, women's physique, there's like 7,000 categories, golly. I hate saying bodybuilding because immediately like everybody not in the bodybuilding group like tunes out. But when you say aesthetic athletes, people don't always know what that means. So it's the term I like. But just because I like it doesn't mean everybody else knows what the hell I'm talking about. So aesthetic athletes are going to usually train like 4, maybe 5, sometimes even 6. They'll tend to train more often. And that's just by the time they try to get in every individual muscle. So aesthetic athletes try to train every little tiny muscle group. Whereas strength-based athletes, you more so just want to train movements. Okay, I want to train the things that do a hip hinge, the things that do a knee bend, the things that do like a horizontal press versus a vertical press. So they tend to think of movements. It's easier to get in what you need movement category-wise versus every individual single muscle. So aesthetic athletes do tend to train more often out of all these groups. So again, 4 to 5 days. So typically how often should I train? 3 to 5, depends on your goal, depends on your schedule. If you can only train 3 days a week, just make sure they're brutal and cover more muscles at one time. 4 is somewhere in the middle of all that. And then 5 days a week, you can spend more time individual muscle groups. Maybe the intensity can be a little bit more modulated. You start the workouts a little bit lower intensity, end with a high intensity, and your total workload doesn't need to be as high because your weekly workload is really high. So there you go. I don't know. Hopefully that was helpful. What are the best exercises for weight loss? Movement. In general, the more muscles you move in an exercise, the more calories you will burn, and that promotes more weight loss. And again, weight loss, I'm assuming that you mean fat loss. So the bigger, more compound movements, the better. So instead of a leg extension, do some walking lunges or step-ups or squats, things like that. So big movements equal big results. There you go. That's the way I think of it. What exercises are best for building muscle? Same thing. Big movements equal big results. When you think of building muscle, typically people are going to say like a specific muscle. So what exercise is best to build my chest? Well, squats probably isn't going to build your chest. But when you say fat loss, like what exercise is best for fat loss? Well, fat loss is systemic, meaning we lose body fat equally all over the body. We don't put it on equally, which, that's a crappy part of human nature. But fat loss is systemic, meaning I can do a lower body movement or an upper body movement. Doesn't matter whatsoever. I'm burning calories. I will lose fat equally across the body. When you think about building muscle, you do have to do a movement that is related to the muscle you want to grow. So if I'm doing squats to build my chest, that's not going to work. So the best exercise to build muscle would depend on what muscle, like which muscle are you talking about. Now, when you think of each individual muscle, most commonly, people are going to say that the bigger the movement, the better. So like a chest press is going to grow your chest better than chest flies. Now, if you just have to say an answer that is quick and universally applicable, that's not a bad answer, but it's frustratingly incomplete. So what I would suggest is, if you're wanting to build a muscle, is to do pre-exhaust, which means you would do an isolation movement for the muscle you really want to grow, and then do a compound movement, which is a big multi-muscle, multi-joint movement that includes the muscle you want to grow. So for example, if you want bigger quads, do leg extensions and then squats. If you want a bigger chest, do chest flies and then chest presses. If you can do an isolation movement before the compound movement, that'll help the muscle that you're targeting with the isolation movement to grow better. The reason why is when we do compound movements, it's the weakest muscle or the weakest aspect of that movement that gets trained maximally. So if you think of dumbbell chest presses, you might fail a dumbbell chest press because you can't stabilize the weight anymore. You have not maximized the growth potential of your chest, you've maximized the progressive potential of your stabilizing muscles. And that's likely not what you want. You want your chest to grow bigger. So if you do chest flies first and then you do chest presses, your chest muscles can be more pre-weakened, pre-fatigued, so that they fail before the stabilizers do. And then now that turns the chest press into a maximal chest development movement, not a max stabilizer movement. So my a little bit more detailed answer would be is to do isolation movements before compound movements for the muscle you want to grow, and then that would be the best exercises to get a muscle to grow. Okay, next, how do I stay motivated to exercise regularly? That's a loaded question. Okay. There's a lot of answers, so I'm trying to filter through. Couple thoughts. I'm just going to go through a couple thoughts. How do I stay motivated to exercise regularly? Reduce friction. Make it easier to exercise. A couple ways we can do that is you can get some equipment at home if you are more introverted and you don't care about having a crowd or people around you. You can work out at home, get some equipment at home. Maybe you have enough to do 1 or 2 workouts at home and you still go to the gym, 1 or 2 times a week. If you're an extrovert and or you're like, I have to have people around or I want to get out of my house, great, go to the gym. But the reducing friction component is make it easier. So one way to do that is to do it early in the day. If you get it in before the world wakes up, that allows you to be more consistent. I know people say oh, I'm just so tired in the morning. That's because you have a shitty nighttime routine and or what you're doing the day before is screwing up your mornings. I promise you that I'm well aware of what that feels like. I've never been a morning person until I started better regulating caffeine intake, better regulating my sleep quality, and then also I just made the decision that my life goes more the way I want it when I work out in the morning and I get my needs met first, and then I take care of everybody else throughout the day. Sounds a little selfish. Okay. That's how you define selfish. Not how I define it. And one way to think of that is, for me to best help others, what capacity do I have to do that with? How well I eat, how well I sleep, how well I feel and move contributes to what my capacity is to help other people. The more I take care of myself, the more I have to give to take care of other people. this is something I would really encourage parents and spouses to think of, is if you are sacrificing your health, thinking that it's making you a better person because you're, putting other people first, bullshit. What's happening is you're living a crappy life compared to what you wanted. You're gonna probably, have a little bit of resentment or frustration or anger in your life, and things just aren't gonna be as best as it could be. And maybe you're dealing with that, maybe you're aware of it, maybe you're hiding that, who knows. But if you better take care of yourself, you will then have a better self to give to take care of other people. Another thing when you think of parents is, what are you teaching your kids? I watched my parents sacrifice themselves as I was growing up, and I thought that that was kind of like what you should do. That's what makes you a good person. And I sacrificed a lot of things in my life that would have been great for me in the pursuit of trying to take care of and help other people. And that did lead to the experience for me being, somewhat frustration, somewhat resentment, all those negative emotions. And then I just had to decide, well, this isn't working for me. Other people are getting benefit from me, but I'm not getting benefit from me. So I started to take care of myself a little bit more. And yes, my life got better, but also I had way more energy when I would help other people. I would actually be more invested into the process. I would seek out more ways to help people. I actually helped people better by taking care of myself. Now, just because that's my experience, does that mean everybody else is going to experience that? No. But I've seen it across 3,000 plus clients. You can read it in every freaking self-help book there is. So it's a universal, mostly. Or there are outliers in the world, I'm sure. But for the most people, if you take care of yourself first, that's going to help you improve the quality of your life, but then also be able to better help other people as well. So that's one way to stay more motivated, is to do it first and schedule it ahead of other things. So when I wake up in the day, I actually do this like the day or two before, but in concept is I plan my day around what I need to do and when can I work out and when can I eat. So if I'm like, okay, I got a phone call at this time, Meredith and I have to go to an appointment at this time, I'll immediately say, okay, well, I got to eat before that, I got to eat after that, I got to eat before this, I got to eat after that. Okay, if I have 30 minutes there, is that the best time to try to squeeze in a workout? Probably not. I'm going to be super paranoid and worried if I'm getting it in time. Whereas if I do it this time, I have an hour and a half, so maybe I can actually fit it in then. So I actually plan my workouts and my meals during my day as I would plan anything else. So I account for them as I would account for phone calls, meetings, appointments, and other things. That's what I would definitely encourage you to do, is don't just go throughout your day and go, holy crap, I haven't eaten yet. Do I have time to eat? Oh, no, I don't. And then you just don't eat. So that's one way to stay more motivated, is if you account for it and plan for it, it'll be easier to fit it in. You don't feel as frustrated. It doesn't feel like so much of a challenge to try to get it in. It doesn't feel like it's conflicting with the things you want to do because it's something you planned and it's what you want to do. So that can help reduce friction and help you stay more motivated. Basically, motivation comes down to how much of a pain in the ass is this to do and what do I get for it? There you go. So if you can reduce the pain in the ass part, you'll be able to do it more often and more consistently, and that it allows you to increase motivation. And then what can I get for it? That component is, okay, well, when I work out, what am I doing this for? Do I have anything that I'm tracking? So maybe today's workout, I've been tracking my workouts, and last week I got 2 sets of 10 on this exercise, but only a set of 8. Maybe today I can get 3 sets of 10. And then all of a sudden that's something exciting, that's fun, that motivates you. Whereas if you're like, okay, I'm working out because I want to be less fat. Am I less fat yet? Am I less fat yet? Am I less fat yet? That is so freaking hard to define, and we're horrible on ourselves when we look in the mirror. So you can have lost 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, and still look in the mirror and be unhappy. So if you're looking without defined goals, without defined things to succeed with in your workouts, you're likely to struggle with motivation. Very long-winded answer, but that is stuff that I would think of is again, what keeps you motivated is if it's the least amount of a pain in the ass and I get a reward for it. So think about what are my rewards? What am I getting? What am I trying to accomplish? What am I doing? The more frequent I can have rewards, the more frequent I can have goals, the more motivated I stay. And the less of a pain in the ass I can make it, the more motivated I'll stay. Go. Okay. What should I eat before and after a workout? Depends on how close you are to the workout. See, they snuck in a nutrition question in the training section. Smart. But this is definitely training related. So before a workout, if you're, I'd say like under about 60 minutes before the workout, you probably want to have predominantly carbohydrates as your energy source. If you're further out from 60 minutes, you can have a mix of fats and carbs, or more so fats, that's fine. If you eat fats inside of 60 minutes, the digestion rate of fats is so slow, you're not really going to get any of the energy calories, like energy from the fats, to be able to use in your workout. So that's why I'm saying it that way, is the further away you are, the more fats you can have. As you get closer, you want to switch the percentage favoring more carbs. And then, like say under 30 minutes before the workout, it should be purely carbs compared to fats and carbs. Protein, you can have protein at any time frame. It's just the complexity of the protein. You don't want to eat like a pound of meat right before a workout, because there's no way in hell your body's going to break down the complexity of meat. Even if it was chicken breast where there's like no fats, it's still just too complex. The digestion rate of chicken breast, I believe, is like 4 to 5 hours. White fish is like 2 to 3 hours. Egg whites is, I think, 40 minutes, 20 to 40 minutes. So, like whey protein powder, pretty much instantly. The digestion rate you would look for to match the timing you are in front of your workouts. So what should I eat before a workout depends on when before. Under 60 minutes, fast digesting carbohydrates and fast digesting proteins. Outside of 60 minutes, the opposite, slow and slow, and or you can add more fats than carbs if you'd like. After workout, pretty much the same thing, just in reverse. The closer to after the workout, carbohydrates and proteins, and faster the better. As you get further and further away from the workout, you can favor slower digesting proteins and or add in fats to the carb and fat percentage. That's probably too vague, but the reason why I say vague is like, what should I eat before a workout? I mean, if you're looking at fast digesting carbs, there's hundreds of options, hundreds. It can be fruit, it can be Gatorade, it can be cereal, it can be muffins and brownies, and I don't know. There's so many freaking options. I get overwhelmed sometimes answering specific questions because there's too many options. And then if I say, like for example, I'll say like, well, you can have Gatorade. Well, I don't want sugar because sugar causes cancer. Okay, so we'll unpack that later. But then don't have sugar. And the person will be like, can I have fruit? I'm like, it's still sugar, but okay, yeah, like whatever, I don't care. So there's, now I'm just ranting. But that would be the answer, and I'm just going to leave it at that, is the closer to the workout, before or after, fast digesting proteins and carbs. The further out from the workout you can get to slower digesting proteins and carbs and add in more fats. There you go. We'll save the rest of that rant for another day. Should I stretch before my workouts? If you follow one of my workouts, you don't need to. I'm going to write that in there for you. We do movement prep sections that prepare the body to move for the day related to the type of movements that are happening in that workout. So lower body, upper body, hinge versus, knee bends and whatnot. If you're working out on your own, you don't need to stretch, but you should make sure the body is prepared to move. What I mean by this is you don't want to walk into the gym and just start squatting with a barbell. It's very unlikely that whatever you were doing before the gym has allowed you to feel like equal muscle tensions and tightnesses throughout the whole body. You probably don't have, blood flowing through all the joints, your adrenaline isn't up yet, your endorphins aren't up yet. Can you go into the gym and just start squatting? Yeah. Is it optimal? No. There's definitely better options. But people can get away with that. You'll see it in younger people because they just don't have as much mileage on their bodies. They don't have as much aches and pains related to weaknesses and previous damaged tissues and all these other things and mobility issues. So do you need to stretch? No. Sometimes people warm up just by Maybe they'll walk on the treadmill for a little bit, do the elliptical. They might do a rower. They might do an assault bike or echo bike. They might push and pull a sled a little bit, do some ski erg action. Just get some blood flow, get some movement, check and see how the body's feeling. If something is super tight, make sure you can do some stretches with that, whether they're static or dynamic stretching. You just want to take an inventory of what do I feel, how do I feel, and if there's anything that feels kind of wonky, address that first, and then get into your bigger movements for the day. So you don't need to stretch, but it's a good idea to take an inventory of how do I feel and does everything feel ready to do this workout. Okay. Well, that is all the questions I got through. If you are a member of the Patreon Classic membership, make sure you check out in the app or on the website the community page, and that's where you can submit questions. If that is unknown to you yet, make sure you search for that. Or you can send me questions to brutalirongym@gmail.com. You can also go to our website and submit questions. If you follow us on Instagram or YouTube, you can submit questions there. Facebook Messenger, I don't care. If you get it to me on anything that is social network wise that I'm on, so for example, I don't have TikTok and I don't really use Twitter, so don't use those. I probably won't ever see your questions. But Instagram, Facebook, you can use WhatsApp if you have that. Email brutalirongym@gmail.com, website www.brutalirongym.com. You can use the Patreon community page, which is what I'd really love because that way everything's in one place. It makes it easier for me. But I do want you to know that this Q&A is for you. You get to ask anything you want, and you're going to get a full and complete answer. And if you didn't get all the details you wanted, I would encourage people to follow up on email at brutalirongym@gmail.com and say, hey, Rob, you answered my question, but I missed this component, or do you mind if you elaborate on this? And then I'll either send you that or I'll include it in the next week's Q&A. As this community gets bigger, I probably won't be able to do as much one-on-one communication, but I'm going to try to do as much as I can while keeping up with my one-on-one clients and all the other things I do in life. But I want you to know that this is for you, and I want you to take advantage of this. Don't just sit around and wait for, see if other people ask questions, or if maybe somebody will ask about this. Ask it yourself. This is a great opportunity. And that's what I really want this service to be, is just anything and everything you want. I'm here. This is what I wish I had when I was 16. This is what I wish I had today. With certain people, it's just almost everyone has questions and uncertainties. And I would love that this to be an opportunity for you to get some of those questions answered and to get some of those uncertainties more certain. There you go. Okay, cool. Well, like I said, if you need anything, reach out, email or website. And then I hope this was helpful, and thank you for your support.